Welcome to Weekend Shelf Control with me, Liam,
And me, Frankie.
and this is a brand new podcast slash live stream thing that we'll figure out at some point where we talk about books and movies from both corners of the globe. I'm in the UK,
And I'm in Australia, so good morning from me to you.
and good night from me to you, but that isn't a good
Although,
night as in a goodbye. It's more as
yeah,
a good evening, maybe. Good evening sounds more welcoming, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and welcome.
I don't know, that's the
Um,
weird thing. Like when you're greeting, do you greet for where you are or where the person is that you're greeting?
that's a great question. I can tell you because I work for a global company that
Ah,
I always do it from where I am, but I feel like more considerate people probably do it for where others are. But we can't predict where others are,
yes, that's true.
so we'll just have to do it from where we are.
Hmm.
So wherever you are, grab a drink, grab a book, grab a movie, get ready to talk about these things.
All right, so I guess the should we explain the shelf control?
I think we should because it's an excellent pun.
And also accurate, as is weekend sounding like weekend shelf control, because we both have problems buying books and movies.
Or hang
And
on, I'm just gonna pick you up on the wording there because
okay,
is it a problem?
well, it is a problem for shelf space, I
Yeah,
would say.
and
Um,
bank balances.
yes, that too. But yeah, not a problem. I like having a large library. I'm a mood watcher and reader, so I like just being able to go and browse around to figure out what's next. I have ideas, obviously. Part of what we're going to be
Yeah.
talking about is our projects, but also I I'm not going to force myself to read anything if I'm not in the mood for it. So I like to have a selection.
Yeah, this is not about punishing ourselves to get through things. It's
Hmm.
about enjoying things. There was a quote that I saw went viralish recently. I think I'm gonna butcher it, but that's fine. I think it was Umberto Eco who said that having a like a library of books to read is the equivalent of like a wine cellar where you're aging them until you're ready to experience them. And I thought that was quite
Yes.
a nice way of thinking about it.
Although I will admit some of them don't do that. And they sit there for a few years and then I go, I have no interest in reading you anymore.
And that's also valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are we here to discuss today?
Okay, we are going to do an overview of what our projects are that we're going to get to, and in just general, I have plans for the year for reading rather than specific projects. I have series that I'm working on. Um, But yeah, I feel a bit looser with the terminology for books compared to movies. I have some set projects.
Yeah. Whereas
And
I
I don't
have,
have yearly plans. I just have thoughts about what I want to watch.
which is how I'm approaching my book projects, because I have a bunch of book projects on the go. I mean, some of them last year barely made a dent on them, but others I did really well in.
Hmm.
And us doing this should hold me more accountable. But I'm like you, I'm a massive mood reader. I'm not going to force myself to make progress on a project if I'm not feeling it. And I also don't want to burn myself out on any of the projects.
Yes. And I guess that's part of why I have so many projects on the go is so, you know,
Yeah,
I've got a lot of genres covered in my reading. I like to read all sorts. So whatever I'm in the mood for, I do have something. And like you said, I'm hoping like us discussing it, and once we've realized that we both are the same in that we seem to collect a lot more than we can get through. So we need to
yeah,
make an effort to, try and get to, especially with movies and streaming, like it's not just watching what's on my shelves. I get distracted by other things coming along.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we thought we would just share our projects and
Mm.
give updates, and it will help us be more motivated to get through them. I know with books, I have a bad habit of starting a lot of series and finishing less. And so I end up with
Okay.
so many that I'm in progress on. And sometimes it's even just trilogies, and I might have one book left, and that one book, it's been like a year since I read book two.
Mm.
So, yes, I want to make an effort.
Yeah. I'm in the exact same boat. I have a trilogy that I read the first one 5 years ago now, I think, and then the second one 3 years ago. And if I'd have been keeping it up with 2 weeks a book, 2 years a book, I would have read the third one last year, but I just wasn't feeling it. One of my goals, it's not a project, it's just a goal,
Mm.
is I have a few series on the go that I want to wrap up this year.
I am hoping to do that as well. I also want to start new series, but I want to
Yeah.
finish some. My reading has been pretty terrible the last couple of years compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
So I have got right back into reading this year. I got back into it over the Christmas break and really wanted to try keep it going. And so far, I have. I think I've read more this month than in any month last year, by
Okay.
number of pages.
Yeah.
So good start. And I'm also super, like, being back into reading has made me really excited. I've kind of put fantasy sort of off to the side because when you're not into reading, they're quite often big books, they're big
Yeah.
worlds, and it just
Yeah.
felt like too much. I did read some fantasy. I've got one in particular that's in my list that I'll talk about in a second, but otherwise, yeah, I kind of have been away from the genre. And there's also a lot of authors that I really want to get to that have been meaning to get to for years. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to get to some of them finally this year, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. It's interesting, right? Because so my journey with reading, used to read loads as a kid, went to university, killed my passion for reading for pleasure. And I got back into it during lockdown
Mm.
and just completely fell back in love with reading. But so far this year, I've just wrapped up finishing a huge, like 1006 or 1008, 1000 plus page fantasy book. Um, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was a good book, but spending that much time in one book, in one world, um, just really slowed down my reading because I try to aim for 50 pages a day, but I couldn't do it with that book. It was just the pages were too big, was one thing. Because page size makes a difference, right?
Mm.
If you have a goal like that in mind. But interestingly, once I got to like towards the end of the book, the last, I don't know, 300 pages, I did manage to hit that goal quite consistently to wrap up the book, but I couldn't do it throughout. But also there was Christmas and stuff in between, which
Yeah.
impacted it.
Also, was it to do with what was happening in the book? Did it get exciting in that last bit that
It,
helped you
it,
to keep reading more?
I'll be honest. Okay, this was a really good book, but it didn't really truly grab me to that I can't put this down until page 900. And
See,
like,
I had a
it was
similar
good.
thing, but with a much smaller book. So it
Yeah,
didn't stand out. I had a 400-page book that it took me, by the time I got halfway, I was so into it that I read the second half in a couple of days because I needed to
yeah,
see what was going to happen. But yeah, that's a
yeah.
bit of a slog when you've got 900 pages
I
before that
mean,
happens.
again, like it was all good.
Mm,
It just wasn't like, oh, I can't put this
exciting.
down, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited to find out what happens next.
Hmm. Well, at least you're done because I remember you talking about being, I think when you're about halfway or something,
Yeah,
you mentioned that. So, well, at least you're done. And also, I usually have multiple books on the go,
yeah, I can't do
um,
that.
mainly out of, well, sometimes out of mood and sometimes out of necessity for my brain, which is I don't like to carry big books when I am going to work. So if
Yeah,
if I have a like chunky hardback or something, I'm not going to carry that into work every day. So I will have a small paperback or my Kindle or something, and I'll read on there to go. I'm reading completely separate books, so like
Yeah.
different genres and things. And so I might just have, a more sort of throwaway, light, easy read if I'm reading
Yeah.
something really involved.
I can only do one book at a time, and I have to if I tried reading multiple, I know that the way that my brain works is I'd be like, oh, I'm really interested in this one, so I'm just going to read this one, and then the other one just wouldn't get read. So I need
Well,
to
that does happen
focus.
to me sometimes, but then when I'm done, I'll go back to the other one. So it just
Yeah.
depends how things are going. But yeah, anyway, should we get to talking about what
I
our
think we should. Let's talk about
plans?
our many
Yeah.
projects that we have on the go.
So I'm definitely not going to get to every book I talk about. Also, I do have some that are just possibilities that are like the series I'm excited to hopefully start this year. And so obviously I'm not going to start all of them because that's too many series. I think I think most of them are quite long or
Hmm.
are universes full of multiple series.
Yeah.
So I can't start them all, but I really want to. So we'll see which ones I get to. Okay, do you want me to kick off?
Yeah. You go
Um,
first, and we'll alternate.
Okay, I'll start with my biggest one, which was the fantasy that I did read in my not reading fantasy much in the last couple of years. I discovered Richard Swan, and I bought his first book in the Empire of the Wolf, which The Justice of Kings, I think that was.
I have
Um,
that on my shelf somewhere.
yeah, I really liked it. I
I
actually
haven't read
read
it.
it when it came out. It was a bit of a cover buy, I'll be
Mhm.
honest. And it was really good. The When the second book came out, I just wasn't really feeling it. But then
Yeah.
last year, I was like, okay, I need to keep going, and um, I reread the first book, read the second book, both 5 stars for me. So I've got. I also bought hard covers because I liked the first cover so much, and then I
Yeah.
had to buy the rest to match. So, but it's a good series. I'm okay with that. So I've got this. Then a novella just came out, set in the world. I think set like prequel times.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and also Grimdark magazine put this out, and I saw they've just announced there's another novella coming out this year. And then I picked up Grave Empire last year. I
Okay.
got the Goldsboro edition. Um,
Very nice. I do love a sprayed edge.
yeah, I had to pay a lot of shipping to get it sent over here, but
Was that from the UK, Goldsboro?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. There's not really local places that do that here. I think it's all pretty much like I know Broken Binding's another one.
Yeah.
People
I
talk
have a few
about
of
it a
those.
lot, which they're so pretty, but I'm just like, I can't even look so expensive.
Yeah.
So the second book comes out next month, I think, for this.
Okay.
So I need to get up to date. This is set in the same world as the Empire
Okay.
of the Wolf trilogy. And he has a sci-fi book coming out in August to kick off a
Interesting.
new series. And I saw that he has a sci-fi series that he wrote previously. So I might go back. I think that might be on Kindle Unlimited. So um, yeah, I might check that out. So that's my big one because I really like those first two Empire of the Wolf books.
Very nice. I probably should read that first one and see what it's all about because
Mm.
I've had that on my shelf for 3 or 4 years now. It was one of those ones where uh, when I first read The Blade itself, and I was like, oh, what's this grimdark thing all about? I quite like this. I saw the first one mentioned as like, if you like grimdark books, give this a go. Picked it up, haven't touched it since. So I should probably rectify that.
I definitely think you should.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
So slightly different from fantasy. A couple of years ago, I discovered the fun world of independent horror, particularly extreme horror and splatterpunk. Now, are these two terms that you're familiar with?
I do know extreme horror. I don't really
Okay.
know exactly what splatterpunk is, but I
Okay.
can guess.
So, well, they often kind of get like used together, but there is apparently a difference that I will try to explain. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure people will correct me. But extreme horror is basically how far can we push the boundaries as an exercise in boundary pushing? So it is just, can we be as vile and gross and gory and extreme as possible, but typically without a lot of, what's the right way of saying this? Like reasoning behind it, right? Whereas splatterpunk is similar to extreme horror of let's push boundaries and do all that stuff, but let's make a point while we're doing it. So that tends to be how the two are kind of separated. I found out about an author called Aron Beauregard. So I he's American, and one of the things that I've discovered that I do is I will come across an American author who has like an independent website, and because the shipping fees from the US to the UK are extortionate, to make it hurt a little bit less, I'll wait till like a Black Friday sale or something, and then just buy as many of their books as I can. So a couple of years ago, I bought a whole bunch of Alan Beauregard books, and I've been slowly working my way through them. I must have read over 10 at this point. Still have at least another like 10, 15 to go. But my next one is Modern Hysteria. Um, I, I don't know how to really describe his books overall because each one is quite different. Some of his more famous books that people might have heard of is he wrote one called The Slob, which was about a woman who was selling, like door to door, selling vacuum cleaners. And she comes across a very unclean man, let's say, who ends up kidnapping her and imprisoning her, and bad things happen. His most famous book is probably one called Playground, which I haven't read yet, but it's coming up. It has a very, very interesting cover of this little girl stood at the top of a slide, but the slide is like drenched in blood, and at the bottom there's like chainsaw blades or like circular saw blades.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that.
interesting. Yeah.
But he wrote the year before last, one of my favorite reads of that year was a book called Scary Bastard, which is all set around Halloween, and it's this like sort of collage of characters who all converge, and some survive, some don't. The opening two chapters, I think it is, follow this man who is staking out a mall as he's trying to like figure out where the security cameras are, and he's watching this family with this these two little girls, and he's trying to figure out how he can kidnap them, and putting the reader in those shoes and seeing that thought process was some of the most genuinely unsettling pages
Mm.
that I've ever read. And that's the reason why I read these sorts of books, is because I want to feel that like nasty, unsettling kind of feeling. And that book, so good, absolutely delivered. So yeah, I'm very much a ride or die with Alan Beauregard.
Hmm. All right, let me find. I have some horror in my stack. A trilogy I need to finish. I read the first book last year. So I will be reading Don't Fear the Reaper, Stephen Graham Jones, and then the third book
Okay.
later. So I also have like three or four other Stephen Graham Jones books on my shelf waiting to be read. So I need to get to them because I have enjoyed what I've read. This trilogy is fun because if you're into horror and slasher movies, there's so much.
Yeah.
stuff because the main character is a fan and she's always talking about it. And the first book had that she was writing school reports to her teacher. That would be at the start of some of the chapters where she
Mm.
was sort of giving him lessons in slasher movies. And
So
so,
what's the name of the first one, sorry?
first one is My Heart is a Chainsaw.
Okay, yeah. So that's one of those authors that I keep seeing around. I'm like, I should really read some of their stuff at some point. Him, Grady Hendrix is another one,
Yes, I've enjoyed
and
what I've
Ronald
read from
Malfi.
him.
Yeah,
Yes, Ronald Malfi. I actually have one book by him that I think I got in a subscription box, so that's on my shelf. But yeah, Stephen Graham Jones has a lot of books. And I know
yeah,
there's the Buffalo Hunter Hunter came out last
yes,
year and was on a lot of people's best of the year list. So I'm looking forward to getting to that one too.
very nice. So after I discovered Aron Beauregard, the following year, another Black Friday sale came along. So I bought every single book that I could of an author named Daniel J. Volpe. So my next one by his is called Plastic Monsters. I've only read, I think, 5 or 6 of his so far, but there's two things about this. First, they're really good. I've yet to read even an average book by him. Um, what both him and Aron Beauregard do that I really like is their books typically are set in like a shared universe. So
Mm.
like characters will pop up
I
in for
love
books
that.
like oh, it's so good. So in the first Volpe book, Billy Silver, it's about this guy who works for he's in a band called Shitfist. And in like a couple of books later, that band kind of reappears at like a gig that some vampires go to. Um, but yeah, so so not only does he have that shared universe that I really like, the dude is just also really cool. So when I made that Black Friday purchase, he did like a big sort of social media post about like, hey, everyone should be like Liam, who's just bought every single one of my books. Really appreciate it. And he's worked with Alan Beauregard a few times. They've collaborated on like anthologies, and there's an ongoing series that they're both working on with another indie horror author called Christopher Triana, called The Obituaries. Um, and one of their sort of like anthologies, what was it called? I think it was called No Exits, and it was like an urban legends and like modern urban legends anthology. It was out of print and it was on eBay for ridiculous money, like over £100 for this one
Wow.
tiny book. And I did a there's a Facebook group that's like horror books for sale, and you can like post if you're looking for stuff. So I post on there because I'm a collector, so I'm trying to collect all of his books, which I think I've done now. And I posted saying I'm looking for this book. He messaged me saying, "Look, I've got a spare copy. If you're planning to order anything else from me in the future, just add it in the note, and I'll add this to that order free of charge. No worries."
Wow.
Because I've got like a TikTok channel where I talk about like books I bought and stuff like that.
Mm.
So it's like you do like a lot for the community. So this is just me kind of like giving back because you give so much to us, sort of thing, which was just I thought very sweet, very nice,
Yeah.
and
Very
it's
nice.
why I really like supporting these like indie authors by buying direct from their shops where I can because you can tell that it makes a difference.
Mm. Hmm. Cool. I have two series that are in the paranormal genre. Um,
Okay.
these are series, I know it's not such a big, the first one is paranormal romance, sort of. The second one less so, but it's a genre that's not really so big these days as back
Hmm.
in the, when was that? Early 2000s or so, being the sort of first decade of the 2000s maybe was the heyday for these kinds of books.
Okay.
So I started reading the Cassie Palmer books,
Hmm.
which it became a universe. There's a connected series. So this I wrote down. This one is up to 14 books now. This is book 6 that I'm up to.
Okay.
the other series has seven, and I've read three. And so the other series has different main characters you follow, but because it's connected in the world, characters from this series turn up. And,
Right.
there's like shared events. So I've been reading them in order because this had so many books before the other series started. And then I was just reading as they came out. So I'm following the timeline. But I was going to check. I can't remember when I last read a book in this series. It's probably been a few years.
Yeah.
So because I'm around halfway, I'm like, there's some characters I really love. I remember a lot of what happens, but not all the details.
Yeah.
Do I want to start at the beginning and reread and enjoy those characters and have everything fresh before I continue on my way? So I will be figuring that out at some stage. The first few books in this series are quite short, so I do know I've like the first books there's another time where I had a gap and I reread. So the first books I've read a few times and I just know that I just fly through them. But also that
Yeah.
was back in the day when I was better at reading. So we'll see. The other series I have, this is one of my favorite authors, Kim Harrison, and this is such a great universe. This is the Hollows series, which did I write down? I didn't write down. I think this is book 18 or 17. I only have two books to be up to date, but this was a series she wrote. She got up to 13, 14 books or something and finished the series. But then after a break, she came back and started writing
Okay.
again. So it's still ongoing currently. Um, but I love this world so much. It's
Yeah.
witches, vampires, werewolves. The main character's a witch, and she lives with a vampire who's still human. So in this world, you're born a vampire, and then once you die, then you're undead after that.
Yeah.
So she lives
Okay.
with her and also a pixie, and they have a business that is probably similar to Dresden Files in a way. Like they
Yeah.
have cases to do with
Yeah.
supernatural things that they sort of leave this other place and form their own company, and then it's just following like they've had to something happened that forced them to sort of come out to the human world. So they're sort of living
Yeah.
in the open, but there's uneasiness and all of that. And there's just so much that happens over these books. So this is why it's become one of my favorite series. So yeah, I've got this book and then one more and I'll be up to date. So she also has just started a new series that this second book comes out this year, and I bought the first book. So when I get up to date with this, I will read that while I wait for the
And
next
is
book.
that series connected to this one at all, or completely its
I
own thing?
don't think so. I think it's
Okay.
completely different. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be
So
interesting.
speaking of like interesting takes on sort of supernatural tropes, if you will, um, there's a UK indie horror author who I really like, who I've met a couple of times now at book events in the UK. And he's done a series last year. I think he was releasing one a month for 6 months, I think, called Dead Awake. And I would like to try and get to it this year. It's not on my project, it's just a goal, but the concept I think is really interesting, which is it's a zombie series, but when you get bitten and infected, you don't immediately turn into a zombie. You turn after you next fall asleep, which I
Hmm.
just think is an interesting take on that idea.
Yeah, I'd become a zombie so fast.
Yeah, same,
I'm such a
same.
low energy person. I'd be like, oh, I give up. I just want to go to sleep.
Yeah, but I like that almost like that blending of like zombies with a bit of like Nightmare on Elm Street kind of idea.
Hmm.
Just yeah, it's interesting. I'll try and get to it and then I can talk about it. Um, so I'm sticking with horror, but going in a slightly different direction with this one. I am currently reading all of the Goosebumps books. I have read the 62 books in the original series. Then I found out that R.L. Stein did 6 anthology Goosebumps books with 10 short stories in each one. So last year I read all of those. This year I'm planning to start Give Yourself Goosebumps, which is kind of like a choose your own adventure style book where it will say, if you want to do this, turn to this page, but if you want to do that, turn to that page. And we were speaking about this because I don't know how to read and review a book like this. Like, at what point, most books it's obvious. You start at page one, you finish at the last page, the book is read. At what point can I say this book is read?
Yeah. And I know we didn't come up with an answer because it's very tricky. Because,
Yeah, because a part of me
yeah,
wants to read every page, but you can't do that linear. So, do I have to like map my journey and then when it gets to the end, I have to go back and be like, right, what if I'd made a different choice and like tick
yeah,
off and make
it's
sure that I have
it's a
experienced every page?
lot of work.
And the other thing is, there are so many of these Give Yourself Goosebumps books. I think over 40 of them.
Wow. I didn't think there'd be that many. Yeah, that's a lot.
And I don't know how to read or review
Maybe,
these.
maybe you could just set yourself a number of journeys so you're getting a range of the story.
But it still feels like I'm missing something if I do that.
Hmm.
Like, you know me, I'm a completionist,
I
right?
know it's hard. I think because I used to read these kinds of books when I was a kid,
Yeah.
when you don't care about fully completing a book.
Yeah.
And now with
Yeah.
our adult brains, it's different. But yeah, I just wonder, it's going to be harder to avoid burnout if you have to put that much work in and going over the same stuff again and again,
But to
like
be fair,
until
like,
you branch off in the different directions.
yeah. But I mean, last year, I really did. I only read 6 Goosebumps, those 6 Tales of Goosebumps books. So that was like one every 2 months. I could do something similar, but then equally at 40 books, it's going to take me quite a few years to get through them all.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, this isn't the last Goosebumps series. There's Goosebumps 2000 after that. There's a spin-off series called something like Slappy's Adventures or
How how stuck are you on having to read everything in order? Like, because these are choose your own adventure rather than
Mm.
sort of straight stories, could you have that as like sort of a side project so that you could alternate with continuing on with the normal narrative books in the series?
Nah, I think I'm just gonna have to get through them, I think. Because I've got so many other series on the go
Yeah.
that like I'll dip in and out of the other series. But yeah, that I didn't realize when I started. Again, this was back in lockdown. I found on eBay the 62 original series and was like, yeah, I need to get those. And it took me probably 5 or 6 years to get through all of them because I didn't want to burn myself out. And we'll get to reviewing them and talking about them. The quality drastically varies, but it's very nostalgic.
Hmm. And they're not 1,000 page books, so
Oh no,
if
I
if you
timed
have one
myself.
that's not very good, at least it's short and quick to get through.
Yeah, I timed myself reading one once, and if I really just sit down and focus on it, I can read an entire Goosebumps book in just over an hour.
Hmm.
Because
Okay.
again, they're nice size pages, and the font is really big, which
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, I quite often I like to have a kid series sometimes as a before bed book.
Yeah.
My favorite is to read through Enid Blyton's Famous Five series
Oh, I
because
used to read those as a kid.
yeah, same. And so I love them. So, actually, speaking of, the other thing I've been doing before bed is reading. The Complete Peanuts, in
Nice.
these lovely hardcovers. This is volume 9, maybe, that I'm up
Okay.
to. Um, Started in 1950. Each book has 2 years, so this is 67 to 68 I'm up to. I can't be bothered figuring out the maths, but it's around about that eighth book. These are ones that I have to find them on sale now. It's funny because generally they'll be on sale for around $30. But the retail is sort of like 45, 50 they can be. So I basically have a list on Amazon and I just keep an eye on it. And I had missed one. I've got this one, the next one, then I had a gap, and then the year after. And then I just saw yesterday that the one that I had to miss had been reduced to $28. So I was like, purchase. Because yeah, that's the thing with these when they are in like a nice set.
Yeah.
Because I've been collecting these, it's been like years since I started, and I always worry that if I take too long, they're going to go away and I won't be able
Yeah.
to complete the series. So I'm trying to just pick them up, even though it's been a while since I've had one of these
Yeah.
on the go. So that's why I have three on the shelf. Um, yeah, I love peanuts. So it's just nice to
I
just read some comics before bed.
I feel like it's making a bit of a resurgence lately. Like I'm just seeing a lot of peanut stuff on social media.
I do know that they've been making new specials on Apple TV, and
Okay.
I've seen one of them maybe. I had Apple TV for a while and I watched one, but I saw that there's been a few. I mean, over the years there has, but I think that one I watched just came out last
Yeah.
year or the year before. I can't remember when I watched it. So yeah, I mean, I would be happy for it to just stay because yeah, I just think they're really fun comics.
That makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I pair series up. So for example, I spoke about Aron Beauregard and Donna Volpe. I always do one, then immediately followed by another one. I don't know why. I just started doing it and I'm like, I'm going to carry on doing that. And it's the same with Goosebumps. I always chase a Goosebumps book because they're often not very good with a point horror book. Now, did point horror make its way over to Australia?
I don't remember it specifically, but we may have because we did have Goosebumps and R.L. Stein
Okay.
books in general. Is
Yeah.
is the window point horror?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I do have that one, and I remember that because it's one that's still on my shelf from my childhood. So, okay, I
Nice.
probably just didn't recognize it was a series. It would just be like, here's the R.L. Stein book, so I'll just pick one.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if they were always branded that way. In the UK, we had this like point horror sort of branding there. Um, and they did a bunch of spin-offs as well. They did like a point romance. I think there was a point sci-fi. There was just point at
Hmm.
one point. Which are you familiar with the Northern Lights, that trilogy?
No.
I think they turned it into a movie or TV show or something. The first one of those, or maybe all three of them, I can't remember, was published under the Point sort of brand. But anyway, so I chased the Goosebumps book with a Point horror book because Goosebumps is for your like, I don't know what, 11, 12 year olds. This is probably more for like 13, 14. So it's like a slightly higher um, age range. They're typically better quality. R.L. Stein, who wrote Goosebumps, has also written a bunch of point horror books. Um, they tend to be a bit tropey in that it will typically be a teenage female protagonist who is being stalked by a guy or something is going on, and there'll be like a mystery, like who's the bad person behind it all sort of vibe to it. And I'm always terrible at figuring it out and predicting it. So every time I'm like, oh, that's a nice little surprise. Every now and again, they'll dip into supernatural. There's like a couple that mention vampires, one that has like ghosty things in it. I've read about 70 of these, I would say. and there's maybe 10, if that, that have supernatural elements. But they're so fun. And like Goosebumps,
How many are there in the total?
I would say roughly, I think there's about 100 or so of Point Horror books. And then they had two spin-offs, one called Point Horror Unleashed, where there was maybe another 20 of those, which was supposed to be slightly more extreme than Point Horror.
Mm.
And then they also had a spin-off that I've only been able to find maybe 5 or 6 books in it called Mutant Point Horror, which are
Mm.
monstery kind of things. So once I finish all the Point Horrors, I'll do the Unleashed, and then I'll do the Mutant Point Horrors in 10 years or so when I get to it.
Okay, I have two more horror ones I'll mention.
Okay.
Just because I think I have a few more than you. These are two series that this is going back a bit, but they were complete at one stage, and then the author came back to add on. First one, most famous, Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles.
Hmm.
Um, I read them all, and I read the Mayfair Witches. And then because the Mayfair Witches also ended up tying into the Vampire Chronicles in later
Okay.
books. So I did end up rereading the Mayfair Witches before getting to that. And then, so the series finished, but then she came back and wrote, I think, three more books in recent years. And I decided I was going to reread the whole series. I was going to skip the Mayfair Witches because the first book is 1,000 pages. And
Okay.
you don't need to read it to have all that background before they come into the Vampire Chronicles. And I
Yeah.
remember the gist of it. So, but I was decided to reread, and then I'm up to book five. Um, and then I stopped. So I have to get back on this and keep going so that I can read the last few books. This one, I know the early ones I have reread a few times. Not Interview with the Vampire. I skipped that because we have the movie and Louis
Yeah.
is boring. So I start with the Vampire Lestat and read on from there. This one, I don't know if I've reread this one. I know the first time I read it, I thought this one was a bit more talky and less
Okay.
interesting. But that was teenage me reading, I think. When did this book come out? I'm pretty sure this was pretty old. Oh yeah, it came out in the mid 90s. So yeah, I think I read this when I was a teenager and thought that. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that now as an adult it'll be fine. I mean, I adore the Vampire Lestat. Um, that's the pick up in a slump book because even though it's big and the way her writing is, it's not like straightforward. It's like pretty writing, but
Right.
it just draws me in so much as really readable. So, um, yeah, I might be in a reading slump, but I'll read that 600 or 700 page book fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to get on with these and catch up. So
See,
that's the project.
I do sometimes struggle with that sort of like purple prose. Like one of the Point Horror authors, Caroline B. Cooney, um, writes very flowery, and there was one book she wrote that it worked really well for me in, The Cheerleader, which was a vampire one. But all of her others that I've read, it's been like pulling teeth. So
I think it depends on, well, it depends on the author and what you're reading, maybe.
yeah,
I don't know. I just love Anne Rice's writing, but also, what she's writing about with the vampires and everything, like just it works for her world to have that kind of writing. But I wouldn't say I always love that writing, but if it works for me,
yeah,
I love reading stuff that's not just your everyday quick thing. Yeah,
yeah,
sometimes it's just really beautiful. I have a book that I might just read the first page and go, oh, this writing is so amazing. I need this
yeah.
book. The other one I have is one that I don't know anyone else who's read this or talked about it. It's one of those. I saw the first book A Taste of Blood Wine, I think it's called, in a secondhand bookshop. And I looked at it for months every time I went in there. I used to regularly go in with my friend, and eventually she bought it for me for my birthday, and I loved it. And it was a trilogy. And then I think that came out in the 90s. And then in 2015, this book turned up, Dark Arts of Blood by Freda Warrington. And so now it's a quartet, and I had to purchase the first books again. They had matching covers design. So,
Nice.
because the first book I had was a huge paperback, which I did like,
Mm.
and I wish I still had, but apparently I got rid of it because I didn't want a duplicate copy. But the other two books I bought from a shop that were coming unstuck from the cover and everything. So now I have fancy versions. But yes, came out in 2015 and I was like, oh, I love that trilogy. I need to read this book. Here we are in 2026. Still
Yeah.
haven't read it yet. So this is another one that I will reread the trilogy because yeah, it's obviously been over 10 years since I read it. So but yes, so they're my vampire ones for this year. But Anne Rice is probably maybe a bit more priority.
Okay.
I do have a lot. Oh, maybe I should make this priority because it's only one book, or the four books in total, but that's a lot less than this series.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Stay tuned to find out how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm moving away from horror now. Um, so I mentioned earlier that I was reading a 1,000 page book, and it was part of an ongoing project, which is to read all of Brandon Sanderson's books in publication order. So I finished reading the first Stormlight Archive book, which is called The Way of Kings. It was really good. Just like I said, it didn't grab me until page 900. This is part of the Mistborn series. So that was a trilogy that I've already read, and this now is kind of called Era 2 of Mistborn and takes place, I believe, in like the same sort of universe, but a kind of like different time period. So Mistborn, very fantasy. This, as you can maybe see from the cover, we've got like guns and stuff going on now.
That's
There
a
weren't
very
guns.
intriguing cover.
Yeah, there weren't guns in the first Mistborn book. So like, I'm assuming things have progressed and we've entered that kind of world. But yeah, what's really nice is coming off of a 1,000 page Brandon Sanderson book. This is going to be a dream. This is reading this. So yeah, this is my next Brandon Sanderson.
I have to say, Brandon Sanderson's been on my to read list for a very long time, years and years and years, years and years. I know the Mistborn trilogy was out.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was all that was out at the time. Because I do remember it was probably around the time I discovered BookTube, and so everyone was talking about those books. And I never got round to it. And in recent years, of course, with my lack of reading, I'm not picking up huge books like that. But with that
Yeah.
news recently about the deal he's made to make
Mm.
movies and TV shows, I think I need to start finally reading Brandon Sanderson this year. So,
Well, what's interesting is like we were talking earlier with like the shared universe, is all of these books take place in this shared universe called the Cosmere.
mm,
And there is one character in particular that has so far at least appeared, I think, in every single one of his books. So in the last book I was reading, The Way of Kings, there's a character that's mentioned and he's got a different name and it's interesting. But then you find out that that name is like a moniker and you find out that it's actually this character that you've already seen.
mm.
And that chapter just, oh, it was so good just seeing this character like bouncing around these worlds. It's such an interesting universe that is being built here, and you
Yeah,
can
I
really
do plan
tell.
to read in the universe order of books.
So that would be
So
starting with
Elantris first.
Elantris,
Yeah.
yes, which I really enjoyed. So you've
Mm.
got a good one to start. To be fair, all of Sanderson's have been pretty good so far. Up until Way of Kings. I'd say Elantris was my favorite. Way of Kings might have just about topped it. Just.
Hmm, interesting. So
Mm.
it took a bit of work to get through, but definitely well worth it.
Like I said, majority was good. It was just the last 100 was really good. But to
Mm,
be consistently good for 900 pages is still an impressive feat.
mm. Okay, what else have I got? I um I'll just quickly mention I have some crime series on the go.
Okay.
So I have been reading through the Tony Hillerman mystery series, Leaphorn and Chi, which is the two characters it follows. And Tony Hillerman is no longer with us, so his daughter Anne took over the series. And I'm actually currently reading this one, which is book 17 of 28. So I have felt fallen behind with this one as well. So I've got that on the go. I am reading Val McDermid, her Tony Hill and Carol Jordan books. This is very dark stuff in these, which is quite enjoyable to, just to, that she goes there with some of the awful things that are happening in them. So this is book 3 that I'm up to. I think there's 11. And I did just start, I got an interest in Italy. So I started looking for Italian set books. And so I found, yeah, Commissario Brunetti. So this is book 2. So I've only just begun, and there's, I don't know, did I write? I didn't write this one down. I think there's like 25 to 30 books in this series. And I've managed to pick up a whole bunch of them from a charity book fest we have twice a year here. So I've got maybe 10 over the last couple of book fests. So yeah, we'll see how that goes because they're a bit harder to find, a bit more pricey to
Yeah.
pick up new. So, and I think they're a bit pricey on Kindle as well. So, but yes, so every now and then I like to have a bit of crime.
So, okay, I'm someone that doesn't really read a lot of crime books. So, or any, to be fair. Do you like the trying to figure out like the whodunit element to it? Or like what's for you, what's the thing about crime books that appeals the
I
most?
don't know, because I also really like crime shows as well. Um, I don't know. I think I really can't say because I don't remember what got me into it, but I just
Yeah.
like the, following a case, working out the clues. I'm not really
Mm.
into figuring out who has done it. I
Yeah.
generally am the kind of person that, well, sometimes I do. It depends how they set it up because
Right.
I like thinking about it in a general way.
Hmm.
Like, oh, maybe it's this person and maybe they did this, but I don't care about figuring it out before we get there. I like to
Yeah.
just flow through the story. And I kind of love like red herrings when they're done well, that you think,
Yeah.
oh, maybe this person did it. And then you realize that they're setting up like 5 different people could have done it. So you still don't know. And then sometimes you're like, oh, this is too obvious. They can't have done it. And so, yeah, I love following that. I don't care if I figure it out or not, but it's more, I kind of just love the police procedural, like following
Yeah.
the investigation and how they're figuring out stuff. And yeah, it's a bit of a, you know, from young, I had an interest in like true crime and stuff and serial
Yeah.
killers and just that whole thing. So yeah, I like the dark stuff.
Makes
Don't know.
sense.
But actually, I can just say that I also like the opposite, and you can have fun when I get to some of my historical romances.
Oh,
So,
fantastic. Can't wait.
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to have a lot to say about these because they're very quick, light, fun things. But I actually have just got back into them after a gap because the new series of Bridgerton's coming out, which is the story of my favorite book from the Bridgerton series, and it reminded me that I never got to the last 2 books.
Mm.
So I'm currently reading book 7, I have them all on ebook because I read them years ago before the show, so you couldn't just pop into a shop and buy them like you can now.
They've got
Um,
quite fancy editions now as well, haven't they?
yes, because I don't own the physical copies,
Mm.
there's fancy ones that they are releasing currently. I think they've released five, four or five,
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
rest are coming out over the next couple of months. So I plan to pick them up just because they're pretty. They're reasonably priced. The ones that are out, the
Mm.
not released ones are expensive, hardcover price, but I'm hoping they'll come down as well. But at least my two favorite books are book two and three, so they're already out. But they have matching picture on the spines, so I want to have the whole
Oh, that's
collection.
nice. Yeah.
And book seven that I'm reading now is really good and really fun so far, and I really like the characters, so this might be another favorite. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, so yeah, I'm not going to go into detail, except look at this cover.
I mean, that is definitely a cover.
I love these historical romance covers, and then you get to if you get one with the step back cover, you get a little
Yeah. Just a little
insert.
bonus treat.
Yeah, I don't think not all of them have it.
Yeah.
So you never know when you're going to get one. And I think they're starting to move away a lot from these kinds of covers.
Right.
When they get published here, the local versions, they completely try to hide that they're this type of book, and they will
Mm.
just have a very boring, like lady in historical clothes, but
Yeah.
there's no idea that you're getting a sexy book. So, and they just make them really boring when like Lisa Kleypas, her
Yeah.
this series and her Wallflowers series, really pretty covers, and they're just I'm holding up book three here because books one and two I have the Australian versions or the ones that are
Right.
available in Australia to buy, and they're
Those covers just
ugly.
aren't sexy enough.
They're not even interesting. Like
Yeah.
these, I like my pretty dress covers, and these sort of more illustrated, kind of
Yeah.
florally what's the word?
Yeah.
Curvy, flowy writing. But yeah. So I didn't want to hold up an ugly one.
That's fair enough. Right, I've only got three left, and I know the last two we're talking about together.
Okay. I have um I have some possibilities. Um Oh, I have one more series. No, actually, yeah. Okay, I don't have any more ongoing series. I do
Okay.
have just some possibilities to talk about besides the two that we
Yeah.
share.
Okay. I'll do my third one then. Well, my next one. So next we have Discworld. I spent a couple of years collecting these covers because when I would order them from Amazon, they would always come really like beat up, and you could tell like the corners, the coloring would be like faded, and they'd be all scratched. So I insisted on only buying them when I saw them in shops, so I could make sure that I was getting good quality covers. Because even in shops sometimes you would pick
Yeah,
up two of the same book and you would see a huge difference. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a real soft spot for the original like Discworld covers that were very cartoony with a lot going on.
I have those ones. I inherited my older brother's collection, and there's
Yeah,
some hardbacks, but a good majority of them are those little paperbacks with those covers.
I love those covers, but there's something really satisfying about how these feel because even though they're hardback, they're still really light, which is
Mm.
nice. Um, and I do like the sort of like foiling on there as well. Although I do need to be careful because I had a paperback book with this sort of foiling on it once, and I sometimes like to read books in the bath, and because it gets like hot and steamy, I found out that the foil was coming off on my hands. So this
Oh,
like gold foiled cover now just looks weird because all of the gold foils come off. So I can't read these ones in the bath. But anyway, this is like the seventh or eighth. So I'm very slowly working my way through. These are just a real nice, if I need like a palate cleanser, I'm like, right, I've had too much heavy books and I just need something light that's going to make me laugh. I go to Discworld. I think one of my favorites so far has been one called Equal Rights, which is about I think a witch, and it's the first female to go to wizard school, essentially. Um, so that Equal Rights is spelled
Mm.
Rites, but it's
Yeah.
yeah, that was a really good one. Would highly recommend.
Hmm. Okay. Before I get to series I would like to start, I have a few randoms.
Okay.
Um, I did have this absolutely chunky book,
Yeah.
um, Count of Monte Cristo. It's been on my list for years because obviously it is talked about a lot. I
Yeah.
watched the movie last year, that just came out last year or the year before, depending where you lived. And I loved it a lot. So I thought I should finally read the story. And I thought getting back into reading, you know, I could put a book this big on my list and take my time reading it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen with some other projects that have come up, like Brandon Sanderson
Yeah.
and one we'll talk about in a minute, that are going to take up some time, plus series I want to get to. But maybe because I really want to read that. And I have a lot of movie books, and I've been really bad at not reading them. So
Hmm.
I would like to get to at least one of these this year. There are two favorite people that I have discovered in recent years. The first being Buster Keaton. I have this heavy, talk about a light hardback. This is an extra heavy one.
Yeah.
So I've got this just biography, and then I also have Cameraman, which is about him, but in the context of how filmmaking changed, plus society in general over his lifetime, because that was from 1895 to 1966. So
Okay.
there was a lot going on. So I thought that would be interesting as well as just hearing about him. And then my other person is Douglas Fairbanks.
Mm.
So I have this book. Do you know Douglas Fairbanks?
The name is one of those where it's like it's a name that I've heard,
Yeah.
but I can't tell you contextually where I've heard it.
Do you want me to read you this thing from the introduction?
Yeah.
Um, okay, because he's someone like I didn't know him at all until he was in a movie, The Thief of Baghdad, the
Mhm.
1920 whatever silent version of it. And I just instantly thought he was amazing after I just randomly watched that one day.
Yeah.
And I went from there. But so he deserves our attention because although we do not recognize it, he is still here. When we settle in once a year to watch the Oscars, it is because he co-founded the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. When we see the latest release from United Artists, is because he formed the distribution company that gave independent producers a venue to sell their works. If we enjoy The Wizard of Oz or Gone with the Wind, we likely don't realize that the man who directed those films got his first chance as a director from Douglas Fairbanks. When we drink in the glories of Technicolor, we do so because his intervention saved the company. When we think of Beverly Hills as the place for the rich and famous, it's because he bought and remodeled a hunting lodge and moved into it when the area was nothing more than scrubby hills. When celebrities navigate the depths and shoals of fame with grace, it's because he and his equally famous wife established the pattern. When we try to get a tan in summertime, it's because he made being dark fashionable in an era when paleness was a virtue. When we see Superman put his knuckles on his hips and assume the hero's stance, it is because the young artist who first drew him based the character's bearing on that of his hero, Douglas Fairbanks. When Batman goes into the Batcave, it is because the creator of the comic strip drew his inspiration from Fairbanks's The Mark of Zorro. And when we see Mickey Mouse, particularly in the early years, it is because his creator wanted a mix of Douglas Fairbanks and Doug's best friend, Charlie Chaplin. So There's a lot
Influential.
of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I also have this book put out by the Douglas Fairbanks Museum, which is just in his own words. So it's letters
yeah,
he wrote, like story treatments for movies and interview snippets and things like that. So, yes, we'll see.
yeah.
Nonfiction, as much as I love to learn about things and read about things, it tends to fall to the wayside for fiction because I like to escape into worlds. But
Yeah.
yes, I have collected these books and I really need to read them.
I mean, I very rarely read non-fiction. So very, very rarely. In fact, I think the last non-fiction book I read was Lauren Graham, Talking as Fast
Mm.
as I Can, after I'd binge watched all of Gilmore Girls. And was like, I need more of this. So I read her book, which was more like a collection of essays that she'd written. And we're going back a good 5 or 6 years now when I read that. And I probably haven't
Yeah,
read non-fiction since.
I forgot about that book. I
Hmm.
I like to read nonfiction by audio because for
Yeah,
memoirs it's good when the people read it
they narrate it.
themselves. And
Yeah,
then for other topics, it's kind of like listening to a lecture when you have,
yeah,
I find with nonfiction, yeah, people telling me things works better than me just reading the page. And fiction,
yeah,
I'm the opposite. I don't often listen to fiction via audiobook. I feel like I just don't take it in as well as reading it. And I can reread. I have reread some series and I feel like that works. When I was rereading the Kim Harrison books, I just went through the audio. And I've
yeah.
reread Harry Potter with Stephen Fry, reading it. But yeah, I have listened to some books by audio, and then I feel like I don't retain the details as much as when I'm reading them physically. I've done that for long books. Like I think Wheel of Time,
Yeah.
I may have listened to, I've only read the first book, and ended up, I think I started reading and then listened on audio so I could listen while I was commuting to work. But I don't remember a lot. So,
I do see, especially for like classics. So a couple of days ago, I read Frankenstein, and I was really struggling with the
mm,
writing style, and it kept getting recommended to me to try immersive reading, which is where you listen to the audiobook while reading the physical book, because it helps kind of keep that focus. But it's not something I've ever tried because. So I'm not one of these people that is like, oh, audiobooks aren't reading. 100% it's reading, and I
mm,
understand that for some people it's the only option they have. But for me, my apprehension around audiobooks is I do feel like tone can be quite leading sometimes, and I'm almost nervous that the way a book is read might shape how I absorb the story in a way that would be different if I was reading it without the narrator doing that. So
mm.
that's the one thing that's kind of almost put me off. But I like the idea that you're talking about of if you've read it once already, it could be a good way of experiencing experiencing the same story again but
Mm.
differently.
It does also depend on the narrator.
Yeah.
Some audiobooks I've just turned off and I'm like, I cannot do this.
Yeah.
Also, the ones that do voices can sometimes be off-putting.
Okay. Yeah.
If I don't like the voices that they're putting on for the
Yeah.
characters, especially if there's an accent involved, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, I might know someone is from this place, but it's really off-putting to have all the dialogue in that accent. I had one that was
Yeah.
an American South somewhere, and it was
Yeah.
just really weird for me to just hear the accent. And I don't know, because I mean, I'm not like against accents and I
Yeah.
enjoy them in movies and things, but there's something about audiobooks and that
Sure.
whole
Is it
storytelling.
is it the switching because a an a pet peeve of mine and I'm aware that there is no real justification or reasoning for this, but I used to have a lecturer at uni who could speak Spanish, and they would be speaking normal like English speaking voice, and then they'd go into like a Spanish sentence, and they would put on like a Spanish accent, which I understand is how you probably should do it, but going like that switch, it makes the Spanish accent in that case sound really like over the top. And I've really struggled to take it seriously. And is it similar to that where
Well,
if they
maybe
go
it
from,
is that because yeah, fine with movies.
yeah, if
Because
it's all in that way,
yeah, it's just
yeah,
you don't
exactly.
have a narrator, you just have the characters speaking. So
Yeah,
yeah, I guess maybe it is something about just having a story told and then switching to the
yeah,
dialogue. I don't know. It doesn't happen all the time, but that book in particular, I was like, I cannot listen to hours of this
yeah,
voice. So yeah, I don't do audiobooks very often these days,
mm,
and generally it is nonfiction because I yeah, focus while reading with nonfiction, unless it's narrative nonfiction,
yeah.
that can be really good. So like the Killers of the Flower Moon, that was a great book to read. So
Okay.
um yes. And if you want
Yeah,
to read the book, read it before you watch the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, because
I've not.
the book is written like a who's the bad guy, what's going on, who's doing
Yeah,
this, and the movie kind of tells you at the
that makes
beginning.
sense.
So,
I did remember there is another non-fiction that I've read, um, which I'm trying to see the title on my shelf, but I'm not seeing it currently. It was Stephen King, Dance Macabre, I think it is,
mm,
which is like him. I think it came out early 80s, and it's him giving an overview of the horror genre up until that point. So going back into like radio shows, and probably one of my least favorite Stephen King books I've read so far. It did not work for me whatsoever.
yeah,
But we'll get to that.
unfortunate. Yes. Okay, I do have some possibilities. Do you want me to leave them till after our
Yeah, can
joint
do.
projects? I'll just throw them in at the end because
Yeah,
they're just possibilities.
yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
All right, so the first sort of joint project is Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files. Now, I've read however many there are before Blood Rights. I think like four, five maybe. But again, I've really like spaced these out. I didn't read a single one last year. Um, and this is similar to the series you were talking about earlier, where there's lots of like side characters that get referenced and recur. And I really want to keep up with this series because I know I'm going to start forgetting those side characters, and I'm going to have to kind of like try and jog my memory of who's who and how they're important and how they correlate to everything. Um, so definitely looking forward to getting on with this urban fantasy about a Chicago's wizard private investigator.
Hmm. And since I only just started reading, I'm up to book three.
Mm,
Um, I started reading this, I don't think I read any last year. It was either last year or the year before I read the first two books. And because
yeah.
I bought a box set of the first five. And so once I found out that Liam was reading them, we thought we could read them together as a series. So I am probably going to reread the first two because
Well, that's
my
great.
memory is really bad, so
Yeah.
I need to have fresh details to have a discussion. Also, the two books are blended together for me now,
Yeah.
so I couldn't remember specifics from each one. But yeah, I'm still because I've only read two, I'm quite new to this world. So I mean,
Yeah.
the Hollows that I talked about earlier, I could talk about that. I just have to look up what happened in each book, but I could talk about it because I've read some of them a couple of times and
Yeah.
I'm like so many books into the world. So I'm going to start on this again so that we can discuss.
So that works really well for me because I can just wait until you catch me up, and then every time I kind of discover a character, I'll be like, Frankie. Who's this character?
Yeah.
Like, should I know them? Are they important? What's their history? But let me ask you this. If you're rereading the first two, are you tempted to do the audiobook?
No, I don't think so. Audiobook,
Okay.
I think the reason I did audiobook was when I was rereading the Hollows series, because the library had them all, and I put it on a slightly faster speed than
Hmm.
normal. Like I always put audiobooks on fast, a bit faster, usually 1.5 because they usually read them slowly. And sometimes I would put it up to 2, um,
Yeah.
because it was a refresher more than anything. But I did
Yeah.
that for speed so that I could get through the books on my commute. I'm
Okay.
sometimes on a bus, so I can't read on buses, or sometimes in the mornings my brain's not awake enough to read a book. So I was
Right.
doing it that way. But
The only reason
it's
why,
my preference to read
yeah,
physically. I don't often do audiobooks for fiction.
the only reason why I ask is because James Masters does the audiobook for Dresden Files.
Hmm.
And I've heard nothing but good things. For
Hmm.
those listening, Spike in Buffy. Um, yeah, apparently he does a really good job with it,
Uh,
which is why.
well, I might go listen to a sample of his voice and see. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it can be an option that I can look into for those 2 books, or maybe more if he's good. I'm not for a book like this is probably a bit easier to do by audio than something like Wheel of Time that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
really sort of a big epic thing, whereas urban fantasy is a bit more your sort of
Yeah, definitely.
action stories. So we'll see, maybe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's interesting that you said that the first two have blurred because to me they stand out quite distinctly.
Well, I mean,
Um,
if you ask me now, what's the main story of book 1 and book 2, I couldn't tell you.
book two is the werewolf one, right? Full Moon? Is that book two? And you have the three different types of werewolves, I think, and then book one is all about the sorcerer that's trying to, and then he summons a demon. If I remember rightly, I am going back a good few years now.
Yeah, this is why I like rereading books because if you wait a couple of years, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
but
Do you want to kick
our
us off for
other
our last one?
project is another one that Liam was doing anyway, and I decided to jump in because I like the idea of such a massive project that's going to
Mm.
take years and years and years to get through. And also fits in with a general idea I have had, which is to read more Stephen King. So, um, yes, the project is every single Stephen King book in order.
Yes, in publication order.
Mm.
So
Um,
where are you starting with it?
so I need to catch up. Liam's read what? You've read
23, I
25,
think.
23.
23, I think. Yeah.
Um, so I am playing catch up. So it's yeah, it's going to take a little while. I do plan to try and read like there's novellas, so they'll take a bit longer, a bit less
Yeah.
time, and then there's some long books like we will have The Stand eventually. Although you're
Yeah.
not up to that, are you? The
No, I've
90s
done the stand.
version.
I did because I wasn't sure if I would like it, and because it's such a massive, massive book,
Mm.
I did the 90s uncut version when it first appears in the sort of publication
Okay.
order list.
All right. So I we're going to do book discussions on every book. So yes, I'll be playing catch up. So we'll probably have quite regular discussions over the next couple of years because it'll probably
Yeah.
take me. I mean, if I do one a month, it's still going to take two
I've still
years at
2 years.
least.
And I'm still going to be reading as well, but I tend to read
Yeah.
like a Stephen King once every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. And so there's a bunch of novellas which helps me to catch up. So um, we'll see how we go.
You've got a few of the Richard Bachman ones as well that are quite short,
Mm.
but then you do need
Yeah.
to try and get hold of Rage. Good luck.
No, I have an old paperback of the Buckman books, which has the 4
Oh,
novellas.
perfect.
So,
That helps.
yes, I'm good to go for that one. But I didn't have Carrie, so I bought this lovely 50th anniversary edition hardcover, which is very pretty. Has even
Mm.
has a ribbon in it. And Salem's Lot is book two, and I also didn't own that one already, and it also has this 50th anniversary edition. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I think it's Bachman books start after that. I picked up
Um,
Night Shift. That's an early one that I didn't have already, and then I think there's a couple that I do. Pet Cemetery I own.
yeah. You'll
Um,
have the Dead Zone will be on there.
I
And
looked at the first few and I picked up Night Shift, Carrie and Salem's Lot because I think I maybe looked up to Night Shift and I have everything up
okay.
to there and then I will pick them up as I need them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do own a few, but a lot of mine are sort of that mid to later stage rather than the early ones. But yeah, I've read a bunch of Stephen King. I've been thinking of reading again the early books I read when I was a teenager. Um, so yes, this project of just reading everything is going to cover that as well.
Whereas my next Stephen King, 'cause like we said, I'm a little bit further ahead, is the second Dark Tower book, The Drawing of the Three. And I hunted these versions down because I wanted the paperback illustrated versions. So these,
Didn't know there were illustrated versions.
there are, and throughout they'll have these like full page illustrations
Hmm.
randomly throughout. Um, Now, I think it's easier to find them in hardback, but all of my other Stephen Kings are paperback, and I just like consistency. Even though they're completely different sizes and everything, I still want them to be paperback. And yeah, it took a while to hunt them down. So I've read The Gunslinger because that's kind of early on in his career. But it took him a while before he got back to the Dark Tower books. Um, and I'm looking forward to kind of dipping back in because I wasn't a big fan of The Gunslinger. But it did feel like he was just sort of throwing ideas at the wall to see what would stick. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see one, how much of that I remember as I go through this, and two,
Mm.
if I feel like this starts improving things at all.
Yeah, I read half of The Gunslinger in January because I was just going to jump in the Dark Tower read along, and
Mm.
then I decided to just do everything because there's a lot of Stephen King I want to read, so why not? And so I stopped reading The Gunslinger because, yeah, if we're not going to be discussing it for a couple of years,
Yeah,
I'm not going
yeah,
to remember it. So there's no point reading it. It was already a reread.
yeah.
So yes, I've put that down again to go
Mm.
back to read Carrie.
And I will say, and this is just again me being difficult, all of my sort of Stephen King books are, or the majority, have a very similar cover design, this like real kind of like autumnal feel. And they did release the Dark Tower series in a similar looking sort of style, but it was when the movie was coming out, and they all had this stupid little
Ah,
sticker printed
mm,
on it that you couldn't get rid of, which is an and I bought two different box sets to try and find them without that on. They've all got them on, which was another reason why I was like, "Do you know what? I don't mind that the illustrated ones are different sizes because I would prefer that than the stupid print on stickers."
mm. I have all sorts in my King collection because I've got some old ones from way back. And then I've got some when I started rebuying them quite a while ago. They had a theme and they were releasing them with all the same cover design
Mm.
in different colors and things. And so I have a bunch like that. Then there's the current design that they have, which I quite like how that looks, like the way the logo of his name and everything is.
Yeah,
So yeah, mine are just kind of all over the place.
yeah. I think most people Stephen King collections probably are like that.
Mm. Yeah, well, there's so many books and so many like decades that they've been available. I'm glad I still have some old ones. Not all of them because yeah, it was like my mum's books I started
Yeah,
on. So she still has them. But I've been able to, yeah, pick up some secondhand copies. So because I kind of like how I like having old paperbacks because it's just,
Yeah.
it's just nice to see, even if they don't match and whatever, when you put them all lined up on a shelf, it's just kind of nice
Yeah.
to have some old ones from back in the, I don't know what they are, like 80s or so.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, I'll just quickly jump through some possibilities that I
Okay.
have to get to. I'll start with this one because the Expanse series,
Heard
I
good things.
have read this book and I liked it, but for some reason didn't continue. I think at that time it was maybe when there was like 4 books out. So at least now they're all out, so I can just read the whole
Yeah.
series. So I need to reread the first one before I continue on because it's been so long. And I think, did I have another one like that? No, I didn't. Um, I want to read Alistair Reynolds. This is the one I have on my shelf, so this is the one that will be first. Um,
Makes sense.
I've had this one for ages as well, so it's about time I got to it. Another one, Lynn Flewelling. Um, I've read a trilogy she wrote, Tamir Triad, I think it was, which I really liked. This is her more famous series, the Night Runner. Yes, Night Runner series. And I've managed to, I think there's 1 or 2 books I need to get. I think there's maybe 7 or 8 in the series. And I've managed to find them at different points across. So some of them I've bought new on special and some I've found secondhand. So I need to start that. Anne Bishop, Black Jewels trilogy. Well, it's a series now. Started as a trilogy. She extended and wrote a lot more books. I think maybe it got up to 12. Um, I just discovered like a week ago that she came back to the series like this decade and
Wow.
has written 3 more books, I think. Um, you wouldn't know it if you looked at her books that they were from the series because they've decided to make them not look at all like fantasy books. So when I first saw them, I thought she had started a new series, and then I realized
Yeah.
this is very fantasy. The books after the trilogy are a bit less fantasy than this, but still very obviously fantasy. And then the new ones are just like a girl's face takes up the whole cover, and it just doesn't look like fantasy. But anyway, so I read a trilogy by her that I absolutely adore. So I kind of want to reread the trilogy too, because yeah, it's probably been like 15 years or something. But I do need to get to that series. And then the rest are sci-fi. No, they're not. No, they're not. I take that back. The rest are not sci-fi. I should have said. The rest are fantasy. Robin Hobb,
Okay.
another one that
That's on my shelf.
I've been meaning to get to for years and years. I love that this is another trilogies set an overall
Yeah.
universe thing. So yeah, some of these books I've probably had on my shelves for over a decade now. Another one, John Gwynne, I've been meaning to get to for years. I'm pretty sure
That's on my
this
shelf.
this I've had, I think, either since it came out or at least when this was the only series out. And there's like
Yeah.
so many more books he's written since then, and he
Yeah.
has a new series about to come out. So, um, yes. And then 2 recent ones. Everyone's talking about Sun Eater series,
That's on my shelf.
so I really want to try it out. And then the Bone Raiders.
That's on my shelf.
This one I think is actually. Is this the start of a series or is it standalone? I don't know. It just came out last
I
year,
think it's
so
part of a duo so far because I have the broken binding version of that with the
hmm.
sprayed edges.
Okay. This was a random find for me, and I just read that it had giant fire-breathing lizards.
Yeah.
And I thought it sounded fun. So yeah, so they're my possibilities. Obviously, I can't read them all because if I start John Gwynne and I've got all that world, and then I start
Yeah.
Robin Hobb, I don't have physical copy, but the Joe Abercrombie is another one that I've been meaning to get to. and he's written so
Yeah.
much more since. And so I
They're
really
so
need
worth it though.
to get I need to catch up to these authors so I can be really
Yeah.
excited about new books coming out. So
I'm the exact same way. It's just like all of those you've mentioned, I'm in the same boat as you, where I've not read anything by those authors, and I have those first books all on my shelves, but I'm hesitant because it's like, well, if I really like it, like Robin Hobb, that's so many books to commit to. Where's the time?
yes, but at the same time, yeah, I do love having that world
Yeah.
to dive
Oh yeah,
into. But
absolutely.
yes, with fantasy, it's always a bit tricky because there's so many long books.
Yeah. Well, that was
Um,
partly why this year one of my sort of goals is to try and wrap up series
mm.
that I'm close to finishing. Because I was like, right, if this year I can get the majority of those done, maybe next year I'll feel more ready to start diving into new series.
I'm kind of doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
I want to try and finish series that I'm close to finishing. I
Yeah.
have a lot of like the crime and mystery and whatever. A lot of them, you don't need to. They're not a world. It's more
Yeah.
recurring characters, so you can space them out and it's fine. But I need to get better at finishing a series quickly that's a connected story. Because
Yeah.
yeah, otherwise I end up like with Richard Swan, where I had to reread the first book because by the time I got to
Yeah.
the second, it had been a year or two since I read the first book.
Yeah. Um, okay, there is an author that I'm curious if they're on your radar or not, because I think they come from your part of the world at least. It's either Australia or New Zealand, one of the two. But Travis Baldree
Don't know.
wrote Legends and Lattes.
Oh, okay, yes, I have heard of that. Lots of people have talked about it. I haven't read it.
Again, a couple of years ago, one of my favorite reads of that year. Then he did a prequel called Bookshops and Bone Dust, which I really loved. And then November last year, he released the third one that I'm blanking on the title, but I'm very excited to get to that in the next couple of months, I think.
Hmm. Ah, there we go. That's it. Plus, probably all the books that we haven't thought of that will come up.
Oh,
Well, at
so
least for
many.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, during the
I
year.
already, as we were talking, I remembered that there's another series that I have ongoing. There's a UK horror author called James Herbert,
Mm,
um, who I think you mentioned with Stephen King, you got like a bunch of those from your mum.
yeah.
I got all of James Herbert's from my mum, and for a while, you know how I said I like to sort of double up. I was doing a Stephen King and then a James Herbert because I was kind of tracking how US horror and UK horror evolved throughout like the 70s and
Mm.
80s by kind of comparing the two. Um, but I was enjoying Stephen King too much that I just went all out on that. But I am
That's
meaning to get
funny.
back to some
I've
James
read a
Herbert.
few James Herbert, but again from my mum's bookshelf. So
Yeah,
it's a long time ago. So I don't remember a lot of them. But yeah, I read a bunch because yeah, I was at that stage going through what she had on her shelves.
yeah. Well, the next one that I have to read is one that as a kid I loved called Fluke. And I recommended it to a friend a while ago, and Ellie, and she hated it, absolutely hated it. So I'm a bit nervous now as to be like,
I was
ah,
gonna say when you said that, it triggered something in my mind, and I'm like, was that a thing on your old podcast?
yeah,
Because I'm
yeah.
sure I
Ellie
remember
hated
discussion.
it, yeah. But I remember reading it as a kid and loving it because it's about a guy that kind of like I think he dies and gets reincarnated as a dog, but it's all told through his perspective of him kind of getting used to being a dog. And it just completely made me look at our family dog at the time differently. Because he would talk about things like how much shame and embarrassment he felt having to like go to the bathroom in public, as dogs do. And it just like it really did like change my perspective of looking at dogs. But yeah, we'll see if it holds up.
Hmm. Okay, well, I think that's it for our book stuff,
Yeah.
and we'll just see how we go through the year.
I think, do you know what? even if we don't make progress on all of the series, we're definitely going to make progress on some of them. And there's plenty of other books that aren't part of these projects that we'll get to read
Yeah.
and talk about.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Even if we don't get to these, we're gonna get to some good stuff.
Oh, yeah. And
So,
even if it's not good stuff, it'll be a good
well,
time talking about it.
yeah.